Welcome back to everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the morning session, or if it was not possible for you to be present in the morning, I will provide you a short overview of what we have done this morning, and then we can start with the afternoon session. So this morning we have done some keynote speech at policy level. So with some important comprehension on what are the policy instruments used in some regions involved in Retrace project. I did a general overview related to the Retrace project and how and why it was refunded for this year. In order to understand how the policy action plan that we deliver and implement in the first call and first project Retrace that was funding in the first call of Interreg Europe program in 2016, and it ended on March 2020. So after 4 years of project, after 2 years of project, we deliver 5 regional action plan to the 5 regions involved in the project that were Slovenia, Piedmont region in Italy, northeastern region in Romania, Nouvelle Aquitaine in France, and Basque country in Spain. So then, as you can imagine, after March 2020, the pandemic situation occurred, and then the Interreg Europe program would like to understand what happened to our programs, our action plans that we also monitor for 2 years, and ask us, open a new call for the project that won the first and the second call of Interreg Europe in the previous programming. So we participate and we want this second refund. So that is the reason why it is since the 1st of October 2021 that we start again to work with Retrace. The main goal was to understand if the COVID-19 affect positively or negatively on the circular economy path of European regions. So we started in October to map the situation in the European regions. And today we are presenting our first activities of the first month. We will have also a second policy learning event that will be the 15th of June. So please take note in your agenda about this. It will be organized by our partner, Le Arti by Fondazioa, and it will be again totally online. So in that occasion, we will have a reflection on the other policy gaps that we identify, and we share our experiences and good practices. Today, we are reflecting on the situation of the regions involved in the project and how the policy instruments are addressing in the new program POR in the different regions. So this morning we had Maria Zaccarteggi from l'Artibai Fondazioa that show us the situation and the action that the managing authority in Euskadi are developing and implementing relating to circular economy. Then we had the experience from Piedmont region, and Tiziana Dell'Olmo explain us how they move from the previous programming to the new one, and what are the main changes that they would like to reach, and what are the main challenges also. And then we understand also the situation in the northern east region of Romania, with the developing agency and Ovidiu Savu explain us the action in that territory. Then we had a focus session on the value of waste, and we had an amazing speech from Federico Porra, that is a policy officer of circular economy at the DG Environment for the European Commission. So explain us the circular economy package and all the actions related to it, with a very concrete tasks that the European Commission want to reach already for the 2022 in relation also to a higher goal related to the carbon neutrality that the Europe want to reach in the next future. Last but not least speaker was from France, Émilie Conjubalest, and explain us the Neoterra roadmap in Nouvelle-Aquitaine. So that was a general overview of what happened this morning. And now we are opening the afternoon session with other really amazing other speakers. Again, from Spain, we have the presentation of some of the good practices that we have mapped in this last month, that can inspire all of us on understanding how to, let me say, take the best part of the pandemic situation in order to accelerate some good practices and some virtuous action towards a circular economy for our regions, so at very local level. The first one will be Olga Martín from Aclima, and then we will have Juncal Aldareguia from TKNIKA, both from Basque country, and they will explain this acceleration of activities in that region. Then we will have the approach that we use in Piedmont regions, thanks to the colleague Amina Pereno, that will show us our way to operate this state-of-the-art of the best practices in Piedmont region. And then for the last part of the afternoon, we will understand how the circular economy can help to get over the climate crisis. We will have Inigo Aizpururu from Inobe in Spain to explain the role of the Basque Circular Hub And then we have the speech from Luca Baldini, that is a service and systemic designer expert that facilitate the involvement and engagement of the stakeholders in that kind of processes. So I would thank you so much, all the speakers that accept with great enthusiasm to be here and share all their experience to us. And also thank you to all the public that is connected online to follow the evolution of Retrace for this second part of funding that we reach thanks to Interreg Europe program. Just before introducing the first panelist, I would suggest to all the audience online to use also the chat. You have a link at the bottom part of the video where you can click on it, and a chat will be open, so you can write your question there, and I will facilitate the debate with all our speakers and panelists this afternoon. There will be a specific question and answer session at the end of all the speakers. But if you want to write your question when the speaker is speaking, I will try to facilitate the interaction. So thank you so much for interact also during this session. So the first speaker of this afternoon, our icebreaker will be Olga Martín, that is General Manager at Aclima, the Basque Environmental Cluster. Aclima represents the Basque environmental market main actor, including private companies, research institutions, university, and public bodies. Such Basque government, also public water companies, local authorities, and city councils and towns. So in this following speech, she will talk about the Aclima organization and the role in Basque Country with more than 25 years of experience in that sector. Thank you, Olga.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting us to your here in your project and Retrace. And I will try to explain a little bit what we are doing in the project you have decided to show to you. And I will go to the presentation. I hope everything runs properly. Okay. I hope you can see, and what I would like to explain to you is how we have been working between the environmental and the health sector, trying to introduce the circular economy models in the moment of the pandemic. Okay, and I will try to summarize a little bit about Aclima, about the Basque Health Cluster. What is the context, why we decided to go on with this kind of project, and at the end, what is the project we have done, okay? And Aclima, as you said before, is the Basque Environmental Cluster. We have been working since 1995 trying to promote the competitiveness of the environmental companies, especially SME. We are more or less, or the environmental sector is more or less the 5% of the GDP of the Basque Country. We are trying to deploy projects in circular economy, in climate change, environmental quality. And nowadays we have 150 members. There are the different types of members we have: private, public, technology centers, and so on. And our value chains are the ones you have there: waste, water, polluted soils, air, climate change, ecosystems, and eco-efficiency and eco-design. And the Basque cluster, the other cluster who worked together with us in this project, is working very hard since 2010, and they are more or less the 2% of the Basque country's GDP. They are, as us, focused on competitiveness, innovation, and public-private collaboration. And in this moment, they have 91 members, and in all of these value chains: pharma, biotechnology, medical devices, healthcare, digital health, and services. Okay. And well, in my opinion, you have had people from the Commission to talk about the circular economy, but in our opinion, we have in this moment a revolution. No? From the Agenda 2030 in September of 2015 and to nowadays, there has been a complete revolution about what especially environment is understood to promote, to change our economy, especially in Europe. No? In December of 2019, we have the new Commission, and they published the European Green Deal, and this was a complete revolution for the environment. The environment was the center of the new economy, and there has been a lot of different kind of strategies deployed, but especially circular economy. The circular economy strategy has been going through everything, no? From the global, from the Europe to the member states. In Spain, for example, we have a circular economy strategy, but in the Basque country, in our region, we have a circular economy strategy. So the policies and the strategies are going from the global to the local. No? So we have to implement in our local ecosystems. No? And in the pandemic, we have everyone had a very hard moment, and in this moment we saw that we have a very high external dependence of essential health products. We have to work very hard to try to get in Basque country. I don't know, for example, masks. No, as every corner in Europe, we couldn't produce this kind of devices and equipment, and we need to go abroad to take it to us, and it was very hard, no? And both health and environment were considered essential services. We need to have people working in health and working in environment, because we need to have people to take care of our water, to throw away our waste. So we are essentials, both health and environment. No? And we saw as well that we have a 20–30% of increase of waste, healthcare waste management, because all of this new equipment, this masks we were using, they were throwing to the waste, and with between the Basque Health cluster, our cluster, and the institution of the Guipúzcoa territory, the Diputación Foral of Guipúzcoa, we try to deploy this project. No, we need to build new process and business model in Basque country to have a closer essential health products. We need to build these new processes. So why not to introduce from the very beginning the circular economy in the design and deploying of these new business models and companies. No, so we decided to do this project together, trying to with these three main objectives. No, identifying technologies and business models, because we were in a hurry and we need to do this very, very quickly. So we went out abroad to see if there was something made in Europe and internationally, and try to see if there were some experiences of integration of the biohealth and environmental sectors. We identify this good practice, and we try to talk to all of the agents in Basque Country to try to identify what is the more suitable for our ecosystem in our region. And we try to establish a synergy with everything, between the public and the private sector, between companies, to deploy and to make roadmaps for innovation projects, no, in these areas. So what we do, we establish a lot of meetings with a lot of agents as manufacturers of biohealth devices, for distributors, users, waste managers. We try to with all this information we got, we try to deploy a new circular biohealth value chain. I will explain later. And we see what was the replicable business models we have seen abroad of our region to boost the competitiveness of companies, to try to build these new circular models in the production of equipment or health equipment, no? And we make some workshops to work together to try to select which of these best practices are best for us, and try to deploy these projects in the Basque Country, no? I saw a little this presentation. You can see what is the biohealth value chains, and we define and find business model and technologies in eco-design and circular supply, secondary materials to use in the processes, efficient manufacturing, how to reduce our resources consumption, no? Energy or water, the lifetime of extension of the products, reverse logistics, recycling and upcycling the waste, or energy recovery. We find a lot of information about all of these circular strategies in the biohealth and environment new circular value chain. And the results were these, no? This new circular biohealth value chain, we collaborate with more than 30 public-private organizations. They work together, try to put new projects and new business model in our region. 7 business models were of all of what we saw in other regions were selected as high-level replicability in our region, and we found it 6 opportunities for collaboration. And the opportunities for collaboration were the ones you have there. One for eco-design of eco-circular mask, sustainable packaging for medical devices, efficient reverse logistics for healthcare waste collection, sterilization of medical devices for reuse of recycling, generation of a new recovered raw material, an integral circular solution for the collection and recycling of masks to generate new raw material for production of new circular masks. Around these 6 opportunities for collaborations, nowadays we are pushing different projects. So I think it has been a very successful results, because everybody working in this project, these 30 public-private organizations, were very enthusiastic, trying to boost any new projects related to the new productions of devices as masks or others. Okay, and now I will give room to Juncal. Juncal is part of TKNIKA. TKNIKA is one of the agents we were working with in this project, and she is going to explain to us the project they have developed of eco-design of eco-circular mask. Thanks very much, and anything you want to, I go so fast because the time is so short, and if you want anything from us, please don't doubt to ask us. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. It was, yes, short, but very clear. So thank you for providing us this also complex scenario from European level to local one, and to already introduce the second speaker, that is Juncal Aldareguia from TKNIKA, the Basque Vocational Educational and Training Applied Research Center. That is working on applied innovation in strategic setting, complexity management, technological innovation, and intelligent systems, among many other sectors, of course. And in this following speech, she will talk about this organization and with TKNIKA, what happened in Basque Country, together with the Vice Ministry of Vocational Education and Training.
Okay, so thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm going with the presentation. I hope everything is okay and you can see it. Okay, so as you have said, I'm Juncal Aldareguia. I'm working in the Biosciences and Sustainability area of the VET Applied Research Center TKNIKA. And I'm going to show you in this presentation shortly the project that we have been working here for the last 2 years together with María José Barriola Baraibar and Arantxa Zamora about the new opportunities for circular economy and collaboration in the health sector. I think that all of you know, and as everybody knows, in the last 2 years, so in the March of 2020, we have a big problem with the pandemics. Here, as Olga have said in the previous presentation, we have a big problem with the masks. We didn't have any masks for the health workers. And also we were seeing that there was going to be a big problem also with the generation of waste. This is why we started with this project. No? So first of all, I need to say that this is a collaboration project or a collaborative project together with BOF and the Basque Health Cluster, and also with the different vet centers that we have here in the Basque Country. And our aim was here to generate surgical masks that were more sustainable, and together with other medical equipment that we can generate more sustainable than the ones that we were using in that moment. So this project had 3 different steps. First of all, we start investigating the materials we need to do new masks, and we investigate for new materials that were more sustainable. And then we start making these masks, okay, for the health workers. In the worst moments of the pandemic, that there was no mask for everybody. Then, as we face difficulties validating the mask we have in the mask we were generating in the laboratory, we set up a validation laboratory. And finally, seeing the importance of this field, we set up also here in the area of biosciences and sustainability, we set up a line of applied research directed to the textile field. Okay, so as I have mentioned, we started generating masks. It was March, April 2020, and the people was at home. In the hospitals, there was no mask for doctors or for health workers. So in a collaborative project together with different centers of VET, we started generating these masks, and we get more than 25,000 masks that then were donated to the hospitals and to the health centers. And this was a very solidary project that we performed together with teachers and students of VET centers. And this way it started our project. And this project was possible also because the staff and the equipment we have in the bioscience laboratories in TKNIKA. So, as I have mentioned before, we started identifying the different materials we need to generate the masks, always taking into account the sustainability criteria. Okay, so we started finding materials that were sustainable and were dispersible to use it as the filter of the masks. And also our other aim was to have local production of these materials, because as Olga also mentioned, I think in the previous presentation, it was very difficult to bring from other countries these materials. So it was important to find some materials, sustainable materials that were generated here. And that's why we set up a close collaboration with the Basque company RLR that give us the different materials that we have been investigating. So, as you may know, we have been producing different prototypes of masks, and these masks need to be validated. So, sorry, I think, okay, yeah. So this validation is regulated by a regulation or laws that are these ones that you can see in this slide. And all the masks need to comply with this regulation. So I'm not going to explain each one, but it's just we need to have 3 different tests for this mask that are bacterial filtration efficiency, breathability, and splash resistance. And we have different values depending the type of mask we are going to generate. So, as I have mentioned before, we faced a very big problem regarding the validation of the models we were generating, because there was only one lab in Spain in that moment that can validate the prototypes we were generating. This is why we set up our own validation and innovation textile laboratory. In this one, we were investigating the different fabrics or materials that we can get for the companies nearby, and also we test the models that we generate. But also, we will give the opportunity for the companies also nearby from the Basque Country also to test their own models that we're also generating. So these are the 3 equipment that we need, as I mentioned before, for the 3 tests that are essential for to validate a mask or a model, that are bacterial filtration efficiency, breathability, and splash resistance. And what have we achieved in this project? We did different models of surgical masks, type 2, type 2R, and type 1, and also we did different models of hygienic masks. And we got utility models and patents. Specifically, we developed 14 different prototypes of masks that are classified between hygienic, type 1, type 2, and type 2R. And we test all of them for the 3 tests: bacterial filtration efficiency, breathability, and splash resistance. And finally, one of those models get the patent, and nowadays the industry here in the Basque Country is generating this model of masks with a more sustainable fabrics inside, using as a filter. So we are very happy because we get to transfer the knowledge we were generating here, investigating, to the industry, and nowadays they are producing the model we get here. And what we are doing nowadays, as I mentioned before, we are very aware of all the ways that these new masks that we are using are generating. This is why we are trying to generate dispersible products. We have developed a totally dispersible hygienic mask nowadays, and we are working to generate also a surgical mask that is also totally dispersible. Also, we are working, as you can see in the slide, generating gloves or coats for health workers also that are totally dispersible, with the aim of reducing the waste we are generating, and working in a circular economy project. And regarding with this, we started this year with another project or small project that is based on recycling the used masks. As we are aware of the waste we are generating, what we do is take the used masks and we generate with them something similar to some pellets, plastic pellets, that then can be used in 3D printers, to generate the different products that, for example, different industry can be interested in. So our aim here is first to generate a protocol or a process that it's an easy process to recycle the masks that we have been used, and then give or transfer this knowledge to the industry nearby to if they need, for example, to generate different products with this plastic that we can get from the masks. So summarizing, all this project has been very important for us, not only because we have been working in a circular economy project, but also because it has been an applied research and a collaborative project between different organisms and vet centers, where the knowledge we have generated here has been transferred to the different companies and to the industry here, and also to the centers. And furthermore, some of the students that have been working in this project nowadays are working in this company. So we have also generated work for our students. So this is a total success for us. So thank you very much for attending our talk, and I would be happy to answer any question you may have.
Thank you so much for your great experience and very concrete and real of what can be done even in so difficulties time that we are facing nowadays. So thank you again, and we'll leave the question for the final session later on. So stay with us until the end. If any question comes up, I already have one, but I will keep it for later. So thank you. And now I'm introducing the colleague here, Amina Pereno, that is assistant professor here in Politecnico di Torino in design. She's part of the team in systemic design, and she has been actively involved in the project since 2016. And in this second phase of the project, she was mainly in charge of organizing and announcing also the involvement of the stakeholders and the partnership exchange of good practices among the different regions. In this speech today, she will present what we have done with the good practices in Piedmont regions, the methodology used, and also the results that we get with the project.
Thank you very much, Silvia, for this introduction. I'm very happy to be here. And I would like to briefly start from the beginning, from the project. This morning, we already presented the additional activities of Retrace. Silvia introduced this new here, also in the beginning of this section. And just to have a very short recap on the goal of this new year of Retrace, well, the idea was to understand how in the 4 regions already involved in Retrace, the COVID-19 had positive and negative impacts. From that perspective, the first part was understanding which policy gaps were already present, which new ones arose, or at the same time maybe were bettered. To do this, the exchange of experience was crucial. This is one of the main points of Interreg Europe project. So the mapping and the exchange of good practices was the topic point of this additional year of Retrace. So we start mapping the good practice to understand how the regions were facing a COVID-19 pandemic and all the problems we all know. So to do this, first of all, we started from the definition of boundaries of our research. At a special level, we decided just to focus on the regions involved because that was our scope, the possibility also to really understand how the good practices have an impact on the territory, since we have a good network of stakeholders in all the 4 regions. And the second boundary was the temporal one. So we decided to map the good practices in the past 2 years, so to really understand how the pandemic has an impact and how the good practices are related to the pandemic. The second point was to define some general but very important selection criteria. We share with all partners 3 main criteria. The first one was the degree of innovation, so to understand on 3 main axes that were ecological transition, digital transition, and social innovation, which good practices in these 3 key areas were emerged during the pandemic in the past 2 years. The second criteria was the impact on the territory, because we define good practices as action and innovation that can really trigger the development, the sustainable development and circular development of a territory. And the third point was the relationship with COVID-19. As I mentioned before, we have the temporal time frame of the pandemic, but it was also very important to understand if this relationship was direct or indirect, because in some cases maybe it could be just a temporal relationship and not a causal one. I would like to introduce and to show you a little bit how we work with Piedmont region, because that was, as Politecnico di Torino, the main area we address, but this was done for all the regions involved. So we define the 3 areas, the 3 strands I mentioned in the slide before: social impact, social innovation, green transition, and digital transition. We define in this area the best practice, so the circular action that have been introduced, the tool that has been developed in the region, and the policy or funding instrument that also were created in these 3 areas. Then we define the relationship for each good practice about with COVID-19. So if this relation was direct, causality relation of COVID-19 was an indirect leverage for the good practice. So maybe just the occasion for financial support, and or a temporal one. So they are in the same period, but the relation is quite weak. Finally, we define some topics within the three areas: the part of entrepreneurship, digitization, the good practices related to city, to the food sector, to the mobility sector, and to the rural areas. That is another key point in the retreat project. So this was the result for Piedmont region. We mapped 32 good practices in the past 2 years that are related to circular economy on very different topic, and as you may see, also on with different relationship with COVID and with type of good practices. Just to make some example, some policy has already been cited also this morning, so I invite you to also check the recorded seminar of today. But there are some policy good practices from Piedmont that have been born in these past 2 years that are quite interesting. The first one, for example, is Boja. That was a trial project to support the bike to work, so the use of bicycle to going to work. So it addresses the senior professionals or adult students to support them going to work by bike with economic incentives. The second good practice I would like to mention is PINQUA, that is a national one, but also with a great impact in Piedmont in particular, and is a program that uses funds to redevelop and increase building, in particular with positive impact on social housing and urban regeneration. So in Piedmont has also bring a positive effect in the social side. And the third one I would like to mention is residenzialità in montagna. Especially during the pandemic, the interest towards rural areas and also mountain areas in our region was huge because of the opportunity to enjoy nature, to be in a very different place with the possibility maybe of working by home that radically changed our idea of housing. So in this case, these fundings support the transition towards mountains cities in the Alps, also introducing some interesting social project also related to circular economy. To summarize the result about Piedmont region, we can say that good practices from our map have been quite polarized. Few practices combine digital, social, and ecological transition. In some cases, such as eco-investment and mobility project, yes, we may find digitization connected to ecological transition, but in most of the cases, they are working on one or the other side. Digitization is also a good tool for promoting social inclusion. So from that perspective, we can find good connection between digital practice and social practice, especially if we look at the rural areas, but also the urban one. And last, if we look at the topic, food, that is a very key sector in Piedmont region, is also the one that may relate social impact with the green transitions during this pandemic. To have a look to the COVID, that was the goal of our new road race here. Some good practices have a really direct relationship with the pandemic. So COVID-19 has also generated some good practices in Piedmont, but also many other good practices have a temporal relationship. So especially the ecological one have a temporal link to COVID-19, but maybe the effect of the pandemic is less important compared to the digital ones that are the most affected by the pandemic initiatives. So all the digitization has faced a good increase in these 2 years, also because of that. We apply this framework, this analysis to all the trace regions. Was a very great opportunity for the exchanging experiences and ideas, and we are very happy to have these 2 events to discuss about this. We define 24 practices based on 3 criteria. So during the Retrace project, we vote and choose through an evaluation framework the good practices that across the 4 regions are the most interesting in terms of innovativeness, relevance to the circular economy, and transferability to other regions. So these were the 3 assets we consider to define these 24 good practices. We have 8 good practices related to policy. So introducing new instruments from a policy perspective to support circular economy in ecological, digital, and social transition in our regions. And these policy good practices are the focus of this first virtual policy learning event. Then we also found a huge number of industry-related practice. So most of the good practices during COVID-19 in circular economy were related to industry, industrial innovation in circular economy. But that will be the topic of the second virtual policy learning event that Silvia has said will be on June 15. So we will have another opportunity to better discuss and also discover these good practices that were related to industry in COVID-19. So thank you very much.
Thank you to you for clarifying all the process that and the methodology that we use in this first month of retrace, and clarifying the object of these two virtual policy learning event, and how we reach the those good practices that we are going to share with all of you. So now we can have one more good practice that is again coming from Spain, and specifically from Basque country. Inigo Aitzpururu is a circular economy technician and at IOBE, that is a public society for environmental management of the Basque government. He is a chemical engineer at the University of the Basque Country and master in he has got a master in climate change at the University of Exeter. After 12 years in environmental consulting in private sector, he joined IOBE in 2019 as a technician in the circular economy unit. At IOBE, he coordinates environmental assessment work with a life cycle approach within the Basque Ecodesign Center and the Basque Ecodesign Hub. So he's going to talk us about this hub and its working areas, starting from its conversion, which has led to extending its scope of activity to all the concept of the circular economy.
Well, thank you very much for such a thorough presentation of myself, and also thank you very much for inviting us. Well, first of all, I work in IOBE. This is kind of the environmental agency of the Basque government. So what we do is we try to foster a circular economy into the daily management of companies and also municipalities. So the framework of my presentation is the Circular Economy Strategy of the Basque Country 2030. This was developed in 2019, and we have three targets related to the circular economy. We also have 8 key sectors to try to introduce circular economy. In this field, one of the key lines of the circular economy strategy is the Basque Circular Hub. What we do here is, we have been since 2003, we have been working on eco-design with young people, universities, through what we call the eco-design classroom, something like that in English. Then we changed the name and we broadened the initiative to the Basque Eco-Design Hub. And now in 2021, we saw that we could just not talk about eco-design, so we need something broader. So we call it the Basque Circular Hub. So what we do in this Basque Circular Hub is we have 4 fields of work. We're going to go through each of them. We will have one related to learning. We will have another one related to working, another one related to observatory or maybe surveillance, and another one related to tools. All of this is focused on 2 targets. On the one hand, we will have companies, and on the other hand, we will have young people who are just coming out from universities or some other sort of degrees. So let's get started with learning. Well, what we do here is we try to fill in the gap in the field of circular economy that at the moment the university is not covering. I mean, in university degrees, circular economy is not enoughly mainstream. That's the reason why we design specific courses for people, for young people who are just coming out from university, in order to give them some insights of what circular economy is, and specifically we try to mainstream life cycle thinking. Like, we try to train young people so that they can, after this this period of training, get into the market and get into the companies with this life cycle thinking. Okay. So this, what we have on this slide are different, different set of courses we have done in 2020, 2021, and we are now developing this one, Circular Perindartzea, this is the name in Basque, in 2022. Just to have some numbers, in 2020, we were able to train 95 young people, 130 in 2021, and our target in 2022 is to train 250 young people. It's going to be a very hard target because we are realizing right now that the unemployment is going down. So the young people are not as interested as they were before. Okay. Within this training field, we also want to work with the universities and also some other degrees like TKNIKA. We have had someone from TKNIKA before, in order to train the trainer, or maybe we could say share what we do in each field. But our final goal is to mainstream life cycle thinking in university and any kind of degree. And finally, we also have training for companies. I mean, it's not, we are the Basque government, as I said before, so we try to understand the needs of the companies, and we try to provide them with some training on this field. We are not charging for this. I mean, as I said, we are the Basque company, so these are free courses for companies, technical staff. Okay, our second field is lanean, that's the word in Basque, working. And what we do here is, well, we are training people, young people in general, but after that, we try to get these people to have internships in Basque companies. By doing this, we are aiming at 2 goals. On the one hand, we are improving the training of the young people, and on the other hand, these companies can have an extra hand to work on circular economy. And we are pretty successful, meaning that most of these young people after the training period, after the internship, they stay or they are contracted by the companies. Okay, our third field is the observatory. In this observatory, what we do is we try to monitor, we call it like early intelligence. So we try to understand the trends of the market. We try to understand the trends in regulations so that we can develop working lines with companies so that when these regulations come or when these demands of the market comes, they already prepare for this. So we try to use environmental sustainability as a competitiveness factor. We have three phases here. The first one is surveillance. The second one is think tank in order to translate this surveillance into something more concrete. And the last phase here is, as we call it, the project workshop, something like that. So here we try to use these concrete ideas and turn them into eco-innovation projects. We have also a financing line for projects, for eco-innovation projects. So by doing this, we can try to get some inputs for our own programs. So what's the results of this surveillance? Well, we normally get this kind of reports. Each report has a different public or a different target. Here we have 3 different reports, but most of them, they are going to look at future drivers, at emerging tools, such as ISO standards or methodologies. We are going to be looking at challenges, work lines, and in most of these reports, we are also looking at good practice. So which are our topics? In which topics we do this surveillance? Well, these are the topics we have in this economy circular strategy of the Basque Country. So we could be talking about secondary raw materials, plastic consumption, new circular models, food waste, etc. At the moment, we are thinking of looking specifically or about doing a report on critical materials, how companies can start assessing their dependence on critical materials. Okay, this is the last field, and it's tools. What we want to do is we want to provide the Basque companies with tools in order to face these challenges. So what kind of tools? Well, we have at the moment a tool which follows the Eco-Design Directive and is always up to date with everything that comes new from this directive. And we are at the moment developing a tool that we think is going to be very important, which is going to allow companies to assess their carbon footprint, their environmental footprint, and also to calculate circular economy indicators, both for organization or product, and everything in an integrated manner. We think that, or we have seen that, well, that the information, the data we need is almost the same for everything. So if we input the same data and then we have a different data treatment, we are going to be able to reach different results with minimum effort. And all of this is under development and is going to be on the website of EOE. This is what I wanted to share with you.
Okay. So much. was very helpful to understand all the activities that you are facilitating in the region. And I know that you should leave the session soon, so I would take the occasion to already ask you one opinion. So what are, in your experience, the main trends that you can observe from companies in Basque country towards a circular economy? I mean, what do you think it is underestimated or not addressed, the circular economy, or there is some aspect that deserve more attention from the companies of your region?
Well, recently the Sustainability Products Initiative has been published. So I think that this is going to be a game changer. Speaking about that, what we see is that companies are focused on decarbonization, and I think that it's the correct focus. But we have to use circular economy as a part or as a key tool for decarbonization. And I think that at the moment, most of the companies are focused on Scope 1, Scope 2. So when we go to Scope 3, that's where circular economy gets in. And I think that's the direction we have to take at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much for the participation and for your sharing of experiences. And now I have the pleasure to introduce our last speaker of today, that is Luca Baldini. He's a service and systemic designer expert, and his work is to combine research, behavioral science, and service design to create sustainable product service systems focused on people and the environment, and also matching the business needs, of course. He conducts citizen-centered qualitative research to identify weaknesses and opportunities for innovation in public services, now for the Italian public administration after experiences also abroad. And he facilitates co-creation sessions with public and private sectors to provide innovative and efficient services to citizens. So today he will share with us his knowledge and the experiences about the involvement and engaging of stakeholders for territorial development, especially in finding solutions to the climate crisis.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks a lot, Professor Barbero, for this amazing introduction, and I'm really happy that I'm here to share my experience, both, as you said, abroad and in the Italian context. I'll try to be really short because I know that you've been through a lot of presentations and discussion and interesting insight that came along this long morning and early afternoon. So as Silvia just introduced, I am a service and systemic design expert. I work for the public administration here in Italy since less than a year. I had work in the past for Norway, Germany, UK, helping both private and public sector to innovate their services through their customer and citizen. I would like to start, as always, with a very broad question. Just think in your mind, what do you think about when you think about a service? Most probably, and this is also what my first way of thinking was during my first years as a student, and then also as a worker, as a service designer, is this linear, very straightforward paradigm between organization and users. And this is often what it comes to mind when thinking about service. And this is quite normal because we also all the tools we use and we apply are this kind of linear, service blueprints, customer journeys. All this mapping is really linear. It's really is the opposite of being circular. On the other side, as you might also have discussed this morning, reality is much more complex than this linear, straightforward paradigm. We saw it into, when the wildfires breakthrough in Australia a couple of years ago. We saw it and are still witnessing in the restriction of the surface of the Lake Aral in Central Asia. This is two pictures that I really love because it really shows, how we are impactful as a society, as humankind, on our environment. We also have social crises and social challenges. This is Kabul airport during the crisis last year. You might think all of this is really huge and big problems. How are they related to design? Well, if you don't know this example, I suggest you to go and look for it and read it through because it's really compelling and interesting. Two researchers took the Amazon Echo or Alexa and depicted a really thorough anatomical map of human labor, data, and planetary resources to show really, and this is too much to go into the details now, to show really that actually everything is interconnected and you need to think indeed in system, because even the small object that is in our room and that we might often interact with, it has actually a much larger and broader effect that might fall also outside our original scope. And that's why, let's say, the landscape, so that linear paradigm becomes actually more busy. As complexity starts to emerge, we need to imagine a new way to design services. And I'm not here to tell you that, systemic design is a great way to kind of like embrace a new mentality, a new perspective. And that's also what I'm trying to do in my daily job, daily activity, to kind of infuse this new way of thinking and these new methodologies and approaches to design product service systems. Two main applications in systemic design, as I saw it from my past experience, it's design for policy and design for public services. And I will try also to see what are the connection between those two domains, if there are any. The first one is design for public services. You might think, okay, why do we need to use systemic design if human-centered design has been around for many, many years and we've proved that this is effectively producing user-friendly outcome, etc. Well, public services are complex systems that are often affected by multiple variables. We need to be very aware of our unintended consequences. So we need to take into account that when we design. There are multi-layer perspective in public services. Often our interventions actually have long-term impact, so we can't really measure the impact right away, and we need to kind of take into account what will be, again, the long-term impact. And as many of you might already experience, and especially in Italy as well, designing public services involve ambiguous and multiple ownership that we also need to take into account as a challenge to the realization of new and innovative services. As an example, I brought this from Norway, that we were asked to kind of help Norwegians to build a safety net for when they retire. What we did, we took, the topic, new pensions for Norwegians, and we started to say, okay, is this just really about a digital experience, or is this really just about a service or a product? When we started to ask those questions, many more came to light, such as, what is the goal of the system? How are the power dynamics distributed that might affect the design and the creation of a new pensions, a new safety net, a new social security system for Norwegians? What are the current digital and physical infrastructures, if there are any? Do we need to take them into account? And what are the axes of the system? What are their goals? and many others of these questions. And you might recognize some of them because it's not the one that we kind of came up with, but it's the one that we encountered, and we realized that what Donella Meadows often referred to, the 12 leverage points, were actually a reality also for us. What we did, we took this, this old field and concept of new pensions for Norwegian, and we tried to apply what is suggested also from the European Commission, the European, let's say, approach, which is using a life events approach, and I'll tell you a little bit about them in a couple of seconds, and then turn the old concept of pension into all new ecosystems of services, taking into account and kind of being driven by a systemic design approach. The result is that we reimagine the offering, designing a whole new ecosystem of services, not using anymore that kind of like siloed approach of product mentality, of norm mentality, of like low mentality, but started to enlarge the scope and start to embrace a much more human and planetary, if you will, approach. And we did that by using this kind of methodology, which is very close to the systemic design approach, which is called the life events. Life events are significant events, milestones or transition in the life of a person that often require the interaction with public agencies, they be local or national. And what we did, we took them into account. We reshuffle and redesign and created new departments within the pension institution that we worked for in Norway. We are trying to do the same also in Italy, working with the new Italian National Registry together with the Ministry of Innovation and Internal Affairs. And what we did, we involved research, we involved citizens and experts from local municipal registries to design and to reimagine a newly formed Italian National Registry. And this is partially driven by the life events approach, but also the systemic design approach, which is grounded on research and design to identify what people and citizens want and needs, and make sure that they then can actually access services in a kind of like efficient, enjoyable, and successful manner. Eventually, our goal, especially in Italy, is also to come closer to the, let's say, best practices in Europe that are often represented by countries from the Scandinavian region. And here there's an example of a portal which is offering many services centered on this life events approach that I was telling you about earlier, from the Danish government, which is called Life in Denmark, and is often, and is, let's say, a tool that is used for citizens from other states that immigrate and move to Denmark. Again, from Stimul Lab of Norway, what we are also trying to understand and also try to convey here in Italy is that to tackle complex public sector issues, we need integration of systemic design and cross-disciplinary approach is really crucial. So this is like related to the part about designing for public services. I told you that there were two applications: a design for policy. These might be more related to also your field of research. Design for policy, well, we asked to design new interventions for citizens, for industries, for businesses, for public administrations. We have some European directives, policies, objectives that want to inform new services, business models, as I said, for people, business and public institutions. What we often don't realize is actually this implies two types of interventions: policy interventions and design interventions. And the two must go hand in hand to really succeed, and to make policy interventions succeed and to make design interventions succeed. What we started to do, and we will actually kick off tomorrow with the first event, we're starting a series of workshops within a newly formed open innovation approach, sponsored together with many other public administrations. We are following the 4 helix approach. So we have invited many stakeholders from government, civil society, business, academia, And based on this kind of like common ground, we added elements of the systemic design tools that we use from the systemic design agency based in Antwerp, in Belgium. And we use the framing the system and listen to the system, which are two tools that we often use because they allow us to kind of like positionate and understand and frame the problem from a systemic perspective, moving away from, you know, the focus, which is often the case of the single line of touch point or the single service, as I told you at the very beginning, or that linear paradigm between, you know, one entity and then the user of the services that entity is erogating. So we see these two kind of synergies for systemic design, design for policy and design for public services. And we are starting to realize as we go and move forward, and we are not academic, but we are more like practitioners, that actually there is a connection. And design for public services is strongly connected because it can inform through user research the design for policy. But at the same time, design for policy can learn a lot from designing for public services through rapid prototyping to make sure that actually both are implemented successfully and they push forward in a more, the innovation of services in a more holistic and systemic manner. So using systemic design, it empowers us to design for simplicity while appreciate complexity. It expands service boundaries and challenge root causes. It considers multiple ownership and ambiguous responsibilities, as I told you at the very beginning. It adds perspectives and stakeholders until everything is included. It encourages us to think in a non-linear and binary way. It integrates the innovation approach of policy and design strongly together. And at the end, it really makes a change by changing our way of thinking. And I'd like to conclude this short presentation with a summary reflection. So the most complicated, but also the most efficient response is to change our way of thinking. What Donella Meadows said, you know, the paradigm and the goal of the system. To change perception rather than trying to change, improve, or perfect the world around us. But this demands a paradigm shift and a change in our point of view. And I'd like to just wrap up with some of the tools that we often use that are open source and available for everyone. I know there is also an amazing tool that the Politecnico of Torino is using, and I'm really excited to know more about that, but I know that Silvia will tell me a little bit more. Tomorrow we have another presentation together, so I'll learn a lot from that. And on top of that, we add, you know, the Beyond Net Zero from the Design Council, the Systemic Design, the Tarot Card of Text, but also the tools from the System Innovation Association. That's it. Thank you very much.
To you, Luca. Yes, you spoiled again already that tomorrow we will have another presentation together on these topics, of course. And I would take this occasion today to ask you one more question about this involvement of citizens and stakeholders. So what do you think that stakeholders can be a key bridge between the policy, managing authority and industry in order to develop the cross-cutting strategies that can bridge the environmental and social benefit, for example, on some specific issue that can be mobility or other very real aspect of our daily life?
Thank you for the question. It's really, really interesting and super excited to be here. So again, thanks for inviting me. I think as a designer, of course, I would say that the bridge between those two realities is often offered by people. So conducting qualitative research and co-designing, it is actually like the most important asset that us as designers and design researchers can offer to bridge this often too distant world and landscapes. We saw it with this Italian National Registry, by involving citizens and by involving not only citizens but also the local offices of the different local registries from the north to the south. This was brought to the attention of the managing authorities here in Rome, and it really made a change. It really kind of rang a different bell. It started to change the shift, the view and the perspective towards a much more like a different way of designing services, and also pushing for some policy innovation. Because as I told you during the presentation, the biggest challenge for us is that Europe suggests us to follow some specific direction and implementing new services, but then also policy interventions and policy innovation needs to go along with us, because of course to innovate in public services we need to innovate within a policy-proofed environment. Otherwise this is it won't be possible really to innovate. And this is the biggest difference with the private sector, that is much more, let's say, in a way free and kind of like it can have a verve a bit more towards innovation than the public one.
Thank you. And another curiosity about your presentation and your experience, because you show us also other European context. So, and now you are working with in Italy, back in Italy. So I would like to understand with you what are from one side the better value that we have in Italy in comparison with other European country, for your perspective and your experience in the field of engagement of the stakeholder. And in the other side, what is, in your experience, the main challenge that is so specific of Italian context that you should face in your daily work?
So I didn't work for all Europe, so I can't speak for all countries, but the experience of the Scandinavian countries, and I put the Netherlands into the Scandinavian countries because it's sort of like the same, let's say, part of the globe, is that for sure they're much more flat as a culture, and it is also what Ofsted suggested us. So it is really like a matter of being more open to the dialogue. I mean, I'm much more eager to listen without, the vertical structure, which is not the case for countries such as Italy or maybe Spain or France. So that cultural aspect, it is for sure like it might be sometimes a challenge, but also a kind of like a propulsive boundary on which then you can innovate or start to kind of think your strategy around that main challenge. For us as in our context in Italy, is that I think we should, as we are a bit lagging behind compared to other countries and other regions of Europe, we should actually be much more courageous and push forward innovation and new approaches, let's say, faster and better than the others. So we shouldn't go by each steps, but we should start jumping, like from one step to another, and kind of like already reimagining a new perspective. A bit what we saw also for the developing countries, right? That they don't need to go through their pollution phase. They can just straight away embrace sustainability mindset, sustainability-driven policies, etc., and therefore embrace a totally new type of economy in their as while they are developing. They don't need to go through the pollution phase that developed countries went through. So in those kind of thinking, I really believe that us as Italy, but also the Mediterranean countries, let's say, we should kind of like propose like what will be the next. And I'm super happy that realities such as the one of Politecnico di Torino exist in this country, that also have such a predominant role in the Systemic Design Association, because I really believe that strengthening those kind of links and relationship in our territory would just benefit us all, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We try to do our best, and also to educate future systemic designer to stay in our context, of course, to develop that kind of approach and design process here, but also to share their experience also abroad, of course. We have this international master degree where we have students from all over the world, and most of them, of course, would like to come back in their own country and apply to their origin the systemic design approach. And we are proud of it, of course. We try to keep in contact with all our alumni all around. So thank you so much again for being with us and sharing all the experience in that specific field. And formally, we can start the question and answer session. So again, if there is any question from the public, you can write in the chat. Otherwise, I can go through one question for my colleague Amina. That is about the good practices that you have shown before in your presentation. So do you think that the good practices mapped in other regions have a higher degree of transferability in a post-pandemic scenario?
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. I really hope, sorry, okay. I really hope so. Also, one of the final action we will implement in the Rotaries project will be the exchange of the evaluation also of these policy and industrial good practices with stakeholders in all the regions and with the managing authorities, because transferability may be a characteristic, a features of specific good practices. So definitely we have some good practices that are easier to transfer than others. But I also think it's very important to create some opportunities and occasion to discuss together with relevant stakeholders in the region and to present good practices, understanding how to bring the lessons learned in our region. So I think especially in the 24, we selected transferability was one of the key aspects that we evaluate. So especially that list of 24 are very interesting from the point of view, and I think is one of the goal we would like to achieve in the project. So to exchange experience and also to look for the transferability to how to share the result learned during this pandemic. So also to find a way to give an echo to the positive effect of these 2 years that were not the best in our society life, but yeah, we can try learn something.
And about the mapping that you show us about the good practices in Piedmont region that time, you speak about the polarization of the action. Do you think that it will become a problem, a high polarization of those practices, or with the time we are going to manage and distribute a little bit and diversify all the solution in all the sectors?
I think it may be a problem. I mean, polarization is not always the best solution. So just looking at the ecological side without considering the social and digital aspect may be somehow a problem. But I also think that these good practices are within a very short time frame. So most of the good practices have just started 1 year ago, 2 years ago. So I think we will have time also to evaluate and monitoring the effect of the good practices. So I think that if, I mean, a policy that is fostering ecological transition will, of course, also have a social impact, and I hope positive social impact. So I think it would be very important to look at these good practices in 1 year, in 2 years, so have a longer period also to understand if they also have the opportunity and the ability to put together different aspects. But I really believe that could be so finding a balance between ecological, social, and of course digital transition that was the more influenced and affected by the COVID-19 because we were all forced to be at home. So many positive practices also from that side could bring social value. So I think we will have the opportunity to look in the next future.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that we can close this afternoon session that we enjoy many different panelists. Just to summarize, we had the experience and related to Aclima action, and always from Basque countries. We had a specific example related to the mask and biohealth experience from Juncal, Aldareguia, from TKNIKA. And then with Amina Pereno, we had a clear framework where we work, analyzed, map all the good practices in general for a trace project, so in all the region, and then specifically for Piedmont region. And then again from Basque country, the experience of the Circular Hub from Inigo Aizpuru, and what are the enhancer and the tools used by Basque region to facilitate the circular actions at different level. For enterprises, small and medium enterprises, and so on. And we close this afternoon session with the experience of Luca Baldini related to the involvement of the stakeholder for the regional development, and what are the main tools that can be used to facilitate that process with a European background and different perspective from different countries in Europe. So I really thank you all for, from one side, for participating as a speaker, of course, but especially to all our audience that enjoy this day. Both the morning and the afternoon session, or what you reach for the time that you are available. So really thank you for participating, and I hope that it was a good event to learn different experience. I would invite you, of course, to participate also to our second event that will be the 15th of June. So please already sign it in your agenda so you can join us. It will be a pleasure to have you again on board and discuss further good experiences that we had mapped in Europe and make some reflection all together in this path toward circular economy. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.